Welcome back, ladies and gents, to yet another YouTube video. I'm already running low on stock for video ideas, so you know what that means. Windows Viruses Tier List Part 2. In similar fashion to the last video, which you should definitely watch if you know what's good for you, we'll be running some even wilder malware. We'll still be on Windows 10, mainly because a lot of the malware barely works on it to begin with, so going with Windows 11 seemed like a hassle, and going with something older isn't really exciting given that barely anyone is using a pre-Windows 10 install nowadays. Just like last time, the rating criteria will be based on the creativity of the malware and the damage it inflicts on our machine. Our malware repository this time will be the malware repo from this given user, so shout out to them. It goes without saying, but you can show them some appreciation by leaving a star on the repository, for example, same thing for the person from the last video. And keep in mind that if you do run the provided malware samples, do it safely, securely, and legally. Insert generic disclaimer about not being liable. Our victims are from the company Trust Me Bro Security, the one and only cybersecurity company in none other than Oklahoma. So, let's get started. First, we have Geralt, the CEO. Logging into his desktop, we find a file called Manifesto. I'm still a beginner at German, so I can't read this, but let me know if you can. Secondly, a file called Fiscal Profits. And it looks like the company is worth a whopping $2 as of the current fiscal year. Fantastic. We're starting off the video strong by none other than the Annabelle malware. I'll be honest, I'm a fan of horror, but I'm not immune to jump scares, so I definitely had my ass cheeks clamped when clicking the executable. We ignore Windows' warning in order to run the file and tell UAC to take a hike, just making sure to spread our legs wide open. Funnily enough, the first thing we get is a net framework warning, letting us know that the Trojan might not work if we don't have the compatible version. I'm running a pretty recent version of Windows 10, so I assumed I do have net framework 4.5, so I clicked yes. After doing so, our computer restarts and we're met with this horrific sound on our next login.
When we come to see.
After that, we get this, with the Annabelle OSD in the background. Evidently, this is ransomware. It directs us to some onion links, helpfully instructing us that the Tor browser is necessary for such an excursion, with the payment needed being 0.1 Bitcoin. Clicking on encrypted files seemingly shows us some of our encrypted files. Clicking on check payment says you didn't pay yet, and if you click on information, it asks, are you good enough to kill me? Then says no, you aren't. And finally, clicking on credits gives a shout out to some individuals who seem to have helped the creator of this malware make it, the latter supposedly being iCore X0812. That's really bad for Geralt. His files are indeed cooked. The creativity was obviously awesome and the damage is stark, so we're going with Pwn. Moving to our next victim, Bob, the head of our IT staff. On his desktop is one folder called Company Data, which has nuclear launch codes, and an empty clients folder. Honestly, not even sure what this company does anymore. Bob this time is getting infected with a piece of malware called HawkEye. It creates what looks to be some web file on our desktop saying your file maybe is encrypted, and it seemingly tries to open Internet Explorer, so Windows hits us with the transition into Microsoft Edge screen. Going back to our desktop, we indeed find that the aforementioned file is called Your Files Are Encrypted, and clicking it takes us to this local web page, clearly referencing the infamous Chimera ransomware. It defaults to German, which is quite frankly pretty fitting considering our manifesto-driven CEO, and the payment is just over 1 Bitcoin, so GG's. Safe to say Bob is cooked, and long gone are his launch codes. Pretty much null creativity but strong damage, so I'm gonna put this at mid. Next up is none other than Shelly. She's our resident grandma. Not exactly sure what her role is, but she's there. Her desktop is particularly boring, with a meatballs recipe and what looks to be a bookmark to Google. Right on brand. Speaking of which, the malware is called VeryFun. Clicking on the exe file requires us to probably break all employee handbook directions by putting in Bob's password for approval, and then a window pops up saying a very funny thing is happening. This banger music starts playing in the background, and we get these funky lines being drawn across our desktop. And this is what our computer looks like after 2 minutes of this madness. Hopping into Task Manager, we can actually kill every CMD process that's doing this, and the damage is thereby nullified. Cool looks, some banging music, but zero damage. I'm gonna have to go with meh. Our upcoming victim is Chris, our lead marketing director and unofficial resident Chad. Not sure if that's a real role or not, but damn it if it isn't, Chris has it. On his desktop is a baby names file, and a file with apparently the best coins to invest in. Godspeed, Chris. The malware this time is GoldenEye, the infamous ransomware. As expected, when launched, our files are immediately encrypted with a boatload of UAC windows popping up asking for the permission to modify files. Evidently a big no-no in all circumstances, except when you're trying to make an educational YouTube video, so we put in Bob's password again and pray. Checking out the newly created text file on our desktop, we find this. Similar to the Annabelle malware, this too links you to a couple onion websites asking you for payment, though unlike the ransomware we looked at, the payment doesn't seem to be specified. Cool name and a lot of damage, but zero creativity, so I'll put it in mid. Next up, we have Zaza. I don't even know what this guy does at the company. In fact, I'm not even sure Zaza is his real name, but he is an employee. On his desktop, we find a best monster flavors file. Pretty understandable, and a folder of Sydney Sweeney pics that we're going to be skipping for obvious reasons. The malware this time is called LoveYou, and no, it's not exactly affiliated with the infamous I Love You virus. When running the virus, it produced an incredible amount of flashing colors, to the point where even if an epilepsy warning would have sufficed, I felt like it was too much even for someone who's not in any known danger due to flashing lights and so on, so for the next minute or two, you'll only be seeing still images of the malwares unfolding. Running the exe file, we get this. Nice. I felt a bit reluctant to click the button, and due to the time-based peer pressure, I wondered what would happen if I didn't click. The malware started getting pretty impatient with us and began threatening. I decided to wait some more, and after one final warning, we got a countdown with the button now having disappeared. After the countdown ends, it claims to be formatting our hard drive and hits us with this totally believable BIOS error. However, as you can notice, we can't just click out of this window, and it throws us one last error before closing out. Checking around the computer afterwards seems to confirm that nothing particularly bad happened, yet I did not restart the computer to really make sure. That being said, if the C drive was legitimately heavily damaged, we would have probably gotten a blue screen of death midway through the malware anyway. Annoying looks, unfunny vulgar language, and no damage, this is probably our first garbage malware. Finally, we have Senior HR Manager Veronica. On her desktop is a shortcut to Victoria's Secret and a folder of her pics, which ironically is probably a huge HR violation. This time, Veronica has unfortunately downloaded a bogus version of AdwCleaner. When clicking scan, it supposedly starts looking for adware and such in our computer, but expectedly, much like Internet Shield from the last video, it only falsely flags a plethora of fake malware. You may also notice no X button to close out the program. Afterwards, in true scamming fashion, it asks for a hefty price tag in order to clean up your computer. When we close it from our taskbar, we hop into Task Manager to see if it's still lurking around, and kinda boring looks and unknown damage, as in it's seemingly just spyware or some form of credential stealer, so I'll put it in meh. And those are all the pieces of malware for today's tier list. After today's run, trust me, Bro Security are definitely filing for bankruptcy, which is probably warranted. I hope you guys enjoyed the video. Subscribe and leave a like if you're interested in seeing more. Let me know down below what you thought of this tier list. Maybe you would have went with different rankings or chosen different malware, so feel free to start a discussion. That's all I have for you today, so peace out, and as always, stay true and healthy.